These are the fights to make after UFC 317. So for the pound for pound number one, Ilia Topuria. I know Paddy Pimblett got into the cage and they had a bit of a push and a shove and shit like that. And Paddy Pimblett is probably the biggest name that Ilia can face outside of Islam right now. But Paddy Pimblett isn't the right fight next. It can't be Paddy Pimblett. His best win in the UFC is Michael Chandler. And I know Oliveira got the fight against Ilia Topuria and he was coming off a win off Michael Chandler, but Oliveira's a former champion. Look at the other names in his resume. Paddy Pimblett, his best win is literally Michael Chandler. Paddy Pimblett needs one more, in my opinion. I think you do Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. I think that is the fight that makes sense. There was a backup fighter for the main event of UFC 317. He was originally meant to fight for the title at UFC 311, but pulled out due to an injury. It has to be Arman Tsarukyan. This guy is the number one contender in the UFC's lightweight division. And I know the UFC have said he can't fight for the belt next and shit like that. But when you look at the division, he has to be next. It's the only one that makes sense. He's coming off a win over Charles Oliveira. He's coming off a win over Beneil Dariush, who he KO'd in the first round. It's Arman Tsarukyan. He is the number one contender. It should be him versus Ilia next. Ilia was mid calling him out anyway at UFC 317. Then Joe Rogan's like, I think you're talking about Paddy Pimblett. Did Paddy Pimblett injure his back, Joe Rogan? Then shut up. Arman Tsarukyan has to be next. It makes sense. What I don't want the UFC to do with Ilia Topuria is like, now, in terms of star power, he's not crossing over into the McGregor realm. But career path-wise, he's crossing over into the McGregor realm. Let's keep him active. He took no damage. I want Topuria in the cage main event in UFC whatever in December. He should be closing out the year because if Islam's fighting JDM in November at MSG, which just doesn't make any logical sense at all why that fight would happen at MSG, but say that is where that fight takes place, Ilia is going to be chasing down this Islam Makhachev matchup. I'm all for it, don't get me wrong. I want to see Ilia versus Islam. It's like the dream matchup for me. But he needs at least one title defense in the lightweight division. At least. Like if he say Islam beats JDM, which I think he will in November. This is how it plays out in my scenario, right? Islam beats JDM in November. Ilia beats Arman in December. And then mid next year, even International Fight Week next year, we do Ilia moving up for the chance to become a 3-division world champion against Islam Makhachev, who is now the welterweight champion. Tell me that's printing money. That makes sense. But yeah, what should be next for Ilia right now? It is Arman Tsarukyan. He was the backup fighter. For those who remember, whenever Colby Covington, who done absolute jack diddly, was the backup fighter for Usman Leon Edwards, Dana White was like, kid, Bilal Muhammad, I know he's on a crazy win streak, but Colby Covington, he's on a losing streak. And he weighed in, backup fighter, man. He's fighting for the belt next. So Arman should get that same treatment, in my opinion. It should be Ilia versus Arman. And I think Arman Tsarukyan can give Ilia a tough test because he's about the same size as Ilia Topuria and the grappling. Now, do I think Arman beats him? No, because I don't think he's able to get Ilia Topuria down. But say he is, because he's a better wrestler than what Topuria is. What Oliveira is. And we've seen Topuria be taken down by the likes of Bryce Mitchell as well. But Arman is a lot more traditional in his wrestling than what Oliveira would be. And if Arman can get Ilia down, Arman has got really good ground control and lands some really nasty ground and pound. So Ilia could be in some serious trouble. But I think Ilia would keep it standing, and on the feet it's not even close. Moving on to the loser of the co-main event, we have got Charles Oliveira. Look, that was a devastating loss for Charles Oliveira. KO'd in the first round badly. Now, Oliveira is still a big name. He's got a cult-like following in the UFC. What should be next for him after this? When you look at the lightweight rankings, there are some other options. But he's a big name and the UFC will want to capitalise on it. He's getting up there in age now. He's definitely near the end of his career, the amount of damage he's taken. So the UFC are going to want to capitalise on Charles Oliveira still. Strike while the iron is hot. Either way, if Max loses or beats Dustin Poirier, that's the fight to make next. Because if Dustin if Dustin wins, he's retiring anyway. If Max is able to beat Dustin Poirier, which I think he will be one fight off fighting for the belt, in my opinion. And the Oliveira one, run that rematch. It's a fight that everybody wants to see. It'll be for the BMF title. And it's just a fun fight. Oliveira versus Max Holloway 2. Obviously, Dan Hooker has said he wants to fight for the BMF title No, you can fight fucking Justin Gaethje or rematch fucking Gamrot that you robbed. You're not fighting Max Holloway next, my boy. It's Oliveira. They're kind of on the same... Well, I don't know how long Oliveira's going to be out for, but Max Holloway isn't the most active fighter anyway. So we do Max Oliveira start of next year. February, maybe next year. I think that makes sense. I would like maybe in January, but Oliveira took a really nasty KO, and we're yet to see what's going to happen with Max Holloway in the Dustin Poirier matchup. I can imagine Max is going to take a lot of damage in that fight. So, start of 2026, do Max Holloway, Oliveira 2. Moving on. Right, let's just get this out of the way. Pantoja versus Joshua Van. That's the fight that's going to happen next. Pantoja absolutely destroyed Kai France there at UFC 317. He seems to be on his villain arc here because he feels like he's been disrespected, and he has been very disrespected. This guy's top 5 pound for pound right now, in my opinion. He was that even before the Kai France matchup. Joshua Van, obviously a big fan favourite, had one of the fights of the year, if not fight of the year, against Brandon Royval at UFC 317. He's extremely active, this guy. He's fought at UFC 313, 316, 317. And I would like to see Pantoja versus Joshua Van. Maybe do that MSG. 2 title fights on the card. I think it makes sense, in my opinion. This will be a really fun fight. Joshua Van is a really good boxer, and he's got some really good inside low kicks. I'm looking forward to seeing what him and Pantoja can produce. I think Pantoja is just a level ahead of Joshua Van. I think Joshua Van will struggle with his experience. I think the kicks of Pantoja are really good as well, with how he throws them to then close the distance to then get in and get his takedowns. And I think his grappling will be too much for Joshua Van, and I think he will sub Joshua Van. Moving on, Brandon Royval, the loser. Look, Brandon Royval hinted at this even if he had won it, and that's just move up to bantamweight. Let's have him do the Figueiredo bantamweight test. Let's put him in there against Rob Font. Rob Font, we haven't seen him in a while. He last fought at UFC Fight Night Seattle. Got a pretty good win by decision in that matchup. I think the guy he fought was undefeated. Gene Matsumoto, if I would you call him, or Gene Matsumoto, however you say his name. Anyway, he was a highly thought of prospect. I'm actually pretty sure he was the favourite going into that fight as well. And Rob Font beat him. A good fight, a fun fight to watch. Let's just do the acid test quickly with Brandon Royval. He's going to still be ranked inside the top 5 of the flyweight division. Let's move him up to bantamweight. Let's have him fight Rob Font. I think this is going to be a really fun fight. Both guys are really good boxers, and I'm just looking forward to seeing this one. I think stylistically it's a fun one. Royval has fought for the belt before. It's not as if he should be fighting anyone unranked in the bantamweight division. He deserves to fight someone inside the top 10. Rob Font is the perfect stylistic matchup for him. And finally, Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush, he's still my boy. He is back with a win over Money Moicano. What should be next for him? Look, I know Mauricio Huffy called him out before, and people were wanting to feed Beneil Dariush to other prospects, but that is Moicano's job now since Beneil Dariush beat him. Rafael Fiziev coming off a win over Ignacio Bahamontes at UFC Fight Night Baku. Let's do Rafael Fiziev versus Beneil Dariush. Rafael Fiziev is now ranked inside the top 10 at number 10. Beneil is number 9. I think this will be a really fun fight as well. I think it's a hard one to pick who you would favour because Beneil Dariush's grappling is really, really good. But Rafael Fiziev has got really good takedown defense. He's smaller, he's more compact. On the feet, Fiziev is a lot quicker than what Beneil Dariush is. I think Beneil will really struggle here on the feet with Rafael Fiziev. But if Beneil's able to get him down, he does have good control. I think he could control Rafael Fiziev. And Fiziev isn't the biggest puncher as well, which kind of helps Beneil Dariush for his chin. Don't know why he turned into the blue man there. But again, it doesn't take much to maybe stumble Beneil Dariush, so maybe Fiziev could get the finish. But in terms of the rankings, in terms of scheduling, I think it makes sense. This could also be on the main card of UFC, MSG, or whenever they want to do it. It's a good fight. It makes sense. I think these fights just make sense, to be honest. Ilya versus Topuria, Oliveira Max 2, Pantoja Joshua Van has already been confirmed, even though the UFC don't confirm fights until Tuesday apparently. Royval, he's going to move up. He's never going to fight for the belt again in the flyweight division unless Joshua Van beats Pantoja, which I don't see happening. Move him up, have him fight Rob Font, makes sense. And then finally, in the lightweight division, Beneil Dariush versus Rafael Fiziev. What's next for Moicano? I think he should be fed to one of the prospects coming up, whether a Mauricio Huffy or a Fressiam. One of those two guys should be getting the fight against Moicano. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I appreciate the support. What fights do you want to see? And who do you think would win these matchups? And I'll see you all again in the next one.